This is 1017 CHLY.
Welcome to Wellness Wednesday and the Chronic Wellness Radio Show. I'm your host, Sandra Sova, and I want to thank you so much for being here. Whether you are listening to this live on CHLY or catching the replay on Facebook or YouTube, welcome. I'm so glad to share this hour with you. You know, this month marks the 1-year anniversary of Wellness Wednesdays here on CHLY, and our listener base is growing, and we're so appreciative of that. Did you know that we also have a Facebook page? You can go over to Facebook and look for Wellness Wednesday on CHLY. And on that page, you will find the show descriptions and the bios for all of the hosts that take over the mic each and every Wednesday here at 1 p.m. right on this station. The second Wednesday of each month is my turn, and this show is called Chronic Wellness. And, you know, that has come about very organically for me over the past few years. I've lived with a chronic condition most of my life, and while I'm someone that has a chronic illness, I live my life and hopefully along the way inspire others on how to embrace and have a mindset of chronic wellness. Chronic, by definition, means something that is ongoing or constantly reoccurring. And honestly, isn't constantly reoccurring wellness something that we all want? And, you know, like I always like to say, we do not need to be chronically ill to want to be chronically well. To me, wellness does not mean that I'm in perfect health all the time. It does, however, mean that I have the mindset and I make the lifestyle choices to be in pursuit of being the very best version of me that I can be, in spite of, or even sometimes because of, living with a chronic condition. So that is what chronic wellness is all about, and it's for everyone that is interested in living their best life. Stay tuned at the end of today's show because I'm going to tell you about a health event coming up next week here in Nanaimo that's being put on by Dr. John Yim and his team at the VitaCare Natural Health Clinic. So stay tuned for that at the end of the program. As I enter into the second year of this show, I could not be more grateful to bring you today's guest. My guest is one of our country's top minds in the field of arthritis research. Joining me here in studio is Dr. Deanne Lakai, who is the Associate Scientific Director and Senior Scientist at Arthritis Research Canada. She is also a professor, Division of Rheumatology, Associate Head of Academic Affairs, Department of Medicine at the University of British Columbia. Dr. Lakai also has a rheumatology practice in Richmond, BC, where she sees patients with all different types of arthritis. In March of this year, Dr. Lakai received the Distinguished Investigator Award from the Canadian Rheumatology Association. This prestigious award is given to a researcher who has made outstanding contributions to rheumatology around the world and has furthered rheumatology research in Canada. I am thrilled to be able to have Dr. Lakai on the program with us today. And, you know, as someone that has lived with arthritis for 4 decades, I'm super grateful that research for arthritis is happening. And in particular, so much of the research that we're going to be talking about today directly impacts and benefits the lives of those living with arthritis. So, welcome to Chronic Wellness, Dr. Lakai, and thank you so much for traveling to Nanaimo to be with me in studio today.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Now, you have a role that has you doing your research work, and you have a rheumatology practice. With your research role, could you tell me a little bit about ARC, Arthritis Research Canada?
So Arthritis Research Canada is the largest research center in Canada that focuses on clinical research specifically for arthritis. And we're dedicated to finding practical solutions to the challenges that people with arthritis face in their daily lives. So a lot of the things that you were talking about earlier when you introduced this program. Our center includes 32 scientists across 3 cities in Canada, and we have a center in Quebec City, in Calgary, and in Vancouver. And the scientists are from a number of different fields of science. So we have doctors in rheumatology, we have physiotherapists, occupational therapists, health economists, psychologists. So really it allows us to approach issues from a variety of different perspectives to be able to come up with practical solutions that really have an impact on people's daily lives. We receive over $4 million in research grants from various agencies to support our research. Everything is supported from government organizations that fund research, and we publish between 100 and 150 articles from our research every year. So it's a very productive group of researchers and a very collaborative group of researchers. I feel very privileged to be part of this amazing center.
Absolutely. And you know, it's so good to be able to hear the scope of research that's being done, because sometimes when people in the community hear about medical research, we tend to think it's only pharmaceutical driven, and
Definitely.
There are so much more. I know you also do the ROAR conferences each year, which is reaching out. What is that?
Reaching out for arthritis research.
Yes.
Which is a public forum for people with arthritis, because one of the very important pillars, if you want, of Arthritis Research Canada is that we want to make sure that the research doesn't just happen in an ivory tower. We want to make sure that the messages gets out there to the people who really will benefit from our research. And the group that has been absolutely instrumental in making this happen is that we have patient partners that are really integrated into, I would say, the fabric of Arthritis Research Canada. So we have an arthritis patient advisory board. They're involved in helping us set strategic directions at ARC. They're on our board. They are involved in every research program, and what they bring to each of the projects is the experience of the person living with arthritis.
Right.
And they are the ones who organize this ROAR event, which essentially brings the research to the public, and where we discuss different projects and their results and what it means for people living with arthritis.
And that's so important. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you here today to talk about this type of research and programs, because I know personally from myself, I have learned a lot by joining in and watching those online. You provide them in person over in Richmond and also online, and I've learned some really important information that helps me better navigate my own health journey.
Oh,
so yeah, no,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm just going to give you a little preview. I think there's going to be some changes in our ROAR, so stay tuned, and there will be you'll be hearing some evolution of the format in which it's been developed. But we are committed to continuing to bring our research results to the people who live with arthritis.
Absolutely. And I just love that. So your involvement with ARC and all of the research that you do, you also have a very busy raumatology practice. Mm-hmm. What is the sort of split? How do you between the two?
So I have what we call an 80-20 split. So I spend 20% of my time. So what that translates into is 1 day a week that I see patients in the clinic, although I also see patients in the hospital providing rheumatology consult service to people in the hospital who need to see a rheumatologist. And I do that for 1 month per year. I also travel to Alert Bay to do what we call a traveling consultation service, so that people in the communities that are more remote and don't have easy access to a rheumatologist can see a rheumatologist. And so we have this across the province, and I happen to come to Alert Bay. I go there twice a year, and people can see me in consultation there. And then the rest of the time, I do research, I teach at the medical school, I have some administrative responsibilities.
Yeah. So a full plate.
A full plate,
A
yes,
full plate.
but a very exciting plate.
Indeed. So now I understand that the research that you do is primarily focused in two areas. Firstly, studying the impact of arthritis on employment and preventing disability, another really interesting one for myself, and evaluating the quality of healthcare services received by people with rheumatoid arthritis.
That's right.
So these, these have evolved into a few different projects over the years, and I'd like to start by having you tell us about the Making It Work program. I know it's been many years in the making, and in fact, I believe I was actually in one of the early focus
you
groups.
You were,
yes,
definitely. Yes, I remember that.
And that was at a time when, to be honest, I was really struggling, and it was I was in the throes of having very active arthritis and working full time, and it was exciting to be able to contribute in some small way from a patient's perspective. So tell us about that program.
So the program is called Making It Work, and the goal of the program is to help people who have inflammatory types of arthritis, so arthritis like rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis or ankylosing spondylitis, which affects the spine, to support them in their efforts to be able to continue working. So we are helping people to address the challenges that they encounter at work due to their arthritis, with the goal of allowing them to lead healthy and productive lives at work and to prevent work disability. So we want people to not have to stop working if they want to continue working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's what we call a self-management program, which means that we empower people to be able to make the changes that they can make based on providing them with knowledge, with skills, with a greater awareness of their situation and how their arthritis impacts their work, and developing skills to be able to identify those challenges and deal with them. And they are online modules that people complete on their own at their own time. There's 5 of those, and they're all on topics related to arthritis and work. And after each module, they meet together as a group. So everything is online. So they meet online. And the value of the group is very important, because that way people can share their experience. They can learn from one another. They don't feel alone. It's very validating to see that there's other people living similar experiences to you. So when we initially did this program and we did it in person to person, people really told us how important that group component was.
I couldn't agree more. And because there's another aspect of this as well, being in a group environment allows you to actually talk about things in the real deal. And sometimes when you're having something like a chronic condition like rheumatoid arthritis and it's challenging you in the workplace, there can even be some stigma around that, and it can be fearful of what you say, when you say, and just judgment. I mean, maybe that's not the word, but it can be uncomfortable.
Definitely. We know that many people who live with arthritis don't tell their employer, don't tell people at work that they have arthritis, because there's fear of repercussions, that it might affect in the future who gets the next promotion, that it might change the way that people perceive them at work, that their coworker might change. So there's a very big ambivalence, and it's a difficult decision deciding when should people disclose that they have arthritis. And it is actually one of the components of this program that we actually address, help people understand that they don't have to disclose that they have arthritis. When is a good time that they might want to consider it? So, for example, if people start to notice that it's affecting their performance at work, then it might be a good time to speak about it, because otherwise, people are going to start to notice, and they're going to start to wonder, and they might imagine other reasons why people's performance is affected. And the other time when it's time to consider it is if people have resources available to them or changes that they could make at work that would allow them to better work, then it is a good time to mention it. Otherwise, they're withholding things that could actually help them at work. So we talk a lot about job accommodations and how to go about it and how to request job accommodations in our program, and a lot about disclosing and when's the right time, who do you tell, what do you tell, and how do you do it?
It's good to have sort of some support or like a roadmap on how to navigate those things, because sometimes making even small changes can make a huge difference. But you have to be able to first have that conversation so that you don't have some invisible sense of entitlement of why are you getting that foot still under your desk, or what's happening with this, and there's so many different things, whether it's the hours or where you're physically in your workplace, or the different tasks. There's a lot that could be looked at if you're able to have that conversation.
Definitely. And sometimes people think, the changes have to be major and they're going to be costly, but there's actually a lot that people can do. There's a lot that people can do on their own without even having to request anything from their employer. And even the changes that require the employer, they don't have to be major or costly, but people need support in knowing how to navigate that system, as you mentioned that. And that's why the other component of the program is that after these modules and these group meeting, they meet one-on-one with an occupational therapist to have an ergonomic assessment of their work. And it's not done at the workplace. It's done in a one-on-one meeting to respect that confidentiality, and with a vocational counselor to go over their job situation and see what could they do to optimize their working conditions.
No, that's really, really fantastic. So how long so it's an online program and it's actively in place?
So what we've just completed we're still in the process of completing, is our randomized controlled trial, which means that it's a study where you give the program to half of the people right away, and the other half has to wait until the study is finished to then get it. And we've completed the 2 years of follow-up now of the people who've received the program. We're going to be analyzing the data imminently. I'm very excited. In June will be our 2-year time, and we'll be able to start looking at whether the program has affected how people's productivity at work, so how they're able to perform their job while they're working. We have to wait longer to see the impact on work disability, so preventing work loss, but at least the impact on the work we're going to be able to look at. So the program is not out there yet, but depending on the results that we find at this 2-year mark, we might be able to start opening it up to the general public.
Yeah, and even if it's just like as a resource that's offered to either at your rheumatologist's office, or maybe even through HR departments or something, but getting it out there slowly so more people can benefit from it. I think that's great.
That's what we're thinking, to sort of get it out there, not just through the healthcare, but also through employers and benefit plans, and through patient organizations, and through different ways. That's what we're looking at right now. We're sort of in the dissemination phase of thinking of how to get this out there to as many people as possible.
And it's a model that, of course, is being developed through the arthritis side of things, but it could be a model that could work in other situations, because it's not a standalone situation that only people with arthritis have challenges within that scope. So I think that's pretty exciting as well.
Definitely. And my future plans for this program, I think a lot of this is applicable to other chronic diseases, and I'm hoping to adapt it for other diseases as well.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm so glad to have been part of the early research in that myself.
I remember that.
There's the next initiative that I wanted to talk about is the Arthritis Wellness Program. And from my understanding, this is being developed for services for the Indigenous communities, which I understand have an increased incidence of arthritis.
You're completely correct. So Indigenous populations have an increased get arthritis more commonly. They often get more severe arthritis, and there's often a lot of delays, unfortunately, in them getting the care that they need. So this is a program that we developed in partnership with 2 Indigenous communities. Actually, one of them right here on the island. We partnered with the Kwakiutl District Council Health Center and developed together this program, as well as with a community from Haida Gwaii. And we've already pilot tested this program in the Quinson Health Center and Campbell River, as well as in Haida Gwaii, and had it sort of tried out with 25 people with arthritis and their family members.
Okay. So what does this, how does this look different from some of the other, what are the sort of the things that are being focused on and targeted for these specific communities?
So the what's unique about this program is that, first of all, it approaches self-management for arthritis. And self-management is everything that a person does to care for their health and to manage their disease. Although sort of the word manage probably sounds a bit, it's all the things you do to live healthy. Mm-hmm. And so the program approaches it in a way that is consistent with the First Nation approach to health. So in a very holistic way, always being mindful of the impact of arthritis on the physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. Also being very mindful of Indigenous knowledge and trying to connect people with the Indigenous knowledge in their community, and encouraging people to connect with the practices in their community for arthritis and for emotional, mental health, and all those different components of health. And also the other component of this program that's very unique is that it is also for family members of people living with arthritis. And partly because family is so important to Indigenous communities. And this is what they told us when we did some interviews before. They said, we want our family members involved. They are helping us and supporting us in living well with arthritis. So we want them to be part of this program. And the family member says, we want to learn how to better support a person with arthritis. So the people come to the program with a family member or a close friend or whoever it is that helps them in their journey of living with arthritis. And we cover a wide range of topics to help people live well. It's again consistent with this approach where it's empowering people to do what they can to live well with arthritis, focusing on some knowledge, but also practical skills. And there's also a lot of sharing. So a lot of opportunity for people to learn from one another, share their experience, discuss together their experiences. And that is just so powerful.
It is extremely powerful and beneficial. And I love hearing tying in basically our whole body, our mind, spirit, our community, our relationships, because having chronic illness, having chronic pain, having any sort of a condition, it is more than just your physical symptoms. There are a lot of other things that come into
Definitely.
that, and to have programs that are designed to recognize that. I think it's actually becoming more of the trend throughout medicine that, we're understanding the benefits of marrying those things together.
Definitely, I agree. I think this is particularly well suited to the Indigenous approach to health, but it's something that that everyone is seeking. I agree with you. It is a trend. Even outside of Indigenous community, there's a real appetite for this type of approach to health. I entirely agree with you.
Yeah, and it's again, it's just like when you're able to bring people together and have them invite their family member to come in. I think that's also, you become more invested in the process, and it gives also perhaps more of an insight to those family members or caregivers that to better understand what is going on. Definitely. From people who've attended, they found it very beneficial to hear
things not just from their family member, but the other patients there and what they were living, and realizing that putting in better context what the person they were living with had been telling them before. And also, people want to provide support, but sometimes you can be well-intentioned, but the support isn't necessarily the support that the people need. So gaining a better understanding of how to navigate this and what is helpful and not so helpful support, and how do you provide support that is helpful, and how do you communicate about your arthritis and about your needs so that the support that you receive is helpful support, are some of the things that we discuss in the program that people have found very helpful.
That sounds like a very well-rounded approach to the wellness perspective on that.
Thank
so
you.
Where are we at? Yeah.
So this is very exciting because we have finished the pilot testing, and we're now ready to get it out there. So the two communities where we tested it, and with whom we partnered to develop it, so the KDC and Campbell River and Haida Gwaii are implementing it on an ongoing basis. So we actually currently are looking for some community. We are about to have a training session later on this spring. We have a few communities that are interested, but we still have space for one more community. And we're going to be training some people at the health centers to be able to implement the program in their own community. So it's all about a partnership. It has to be owned by the community. It will be provided by the community. But what we are going to be providing is the support and the training so that someone there can implement it on their own and adapt it to their community.
Yeah. And what's the duration of the program when someone?
So it's 6 meetings. In some communities, they like to do it every week and do it for 6 weeks in a row. Other communities prefer to do it every other week, so then it becomes a 12-week program. And the people at the end of the program said, but we want to continue to meet afterwards. Yeah. So in both communities, actually, they're now implementing a more loosely structured once a month or once every 2 months meeting where people can get together again afterwards and discuss how they've been able to implement what they've learned from the program and continue to share their experience. But the program itself is just six meetings.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds terrific, and so I wish you all the best in rolling that out, and we'll be seeing more of that. I guess in our communities here, there's a lot of need for that. I think here right on Vancouver Island.
Definitely. So if any community listening to this show is interested, they can contact us through Arthritis Research Canada, and the email will get forwarded to me, and I'll contact them.
Perfect. Thank you for that. The next piece that I wanted to talk about in your area of research is very lifestyle and activity tracking. So I guess there's a whole big thing that comes with understanding the need for physical activity and moving our bodies and all the benefits that has. And then you marry that up with challenges of pain and mobility issues and all of that. So, there's a hesitation, I think, for some people to bring activity and exercise into their lifestyle. So maybe you can shed some light on why they might want to do that, and kind of what the picture looks like from the research that you've been doing and where it's going.
So you're right on in terms of outlining the challenges and yet the benefits. So physical activity is extremely important for people living with arthritis. I mean, we all know that we should be physically active. The benefits have been shown very much in the general population in terms of cardiovascular health, reducing risk of heart disease, and we can go on and on about all the benefits of exercise. And it's particularly important for people with arthritis for a number of reasons. So first of all, because if people are not active in their day-to-day activities because their joints hurt, then they lose their muscle mass, and then their joints, and the muscles is what supports the joints. So people need a more structured either exercise program or need to make an effort to remain physically active in order to keep those muscles strong to better support the joints. And a number of studies have shown that people who exercise regularly, either through a structured exercise program or who are more physically active, have better outcomes of their arthritis, have less pain, have better function, are able to participate more in daily activities. And then there's the whole other issue of cardiovascular health. So we know that people with arthritis are at increased risk of heart disease. And we know that one of the things we can do to prevent heart disease is to be regularly physically active. So there's another, and it is the number one reason why people with inflammatory types of arthritis may have a shorter lifespan because of having heart attacks. So it is an important thing for people to be aware of, and they need to look at all their risk factors for heart disease, and physical activity is a big one.
That's one of the pieces that really hit home with me from one of the ROAR conferences, is the understanding and learning that unchecked inflammation, so inflammation that is not brought under control, is such a risk for heart health.
Yes, that's right. So, we think of arthritis as just affecting the joints, but inflammation is bad for the joints because that's what causes damage to the joint, and that's painful, and that's what affects people's quality of life. But inflammation in the entire body is also overall really bad for a person's health, and it leads to complications of inflammation like heart attacks and also other chronic diseases like diabetes. And we did a study a few years ago and showed that it increases the risk of a pulmonary disease as well, like COPD, and it increases the risk of thinning of the bones, like osteoporosis. We think it increases the risk of infection. So, there's a lot of effects on a person's health that unchecked. So I think you really nailed it when you said unchecked. So if people's inflammation is well controlled and they're on their medications, are reducing the inflammation and bringing the inflammation to nothing, or eradicating the inflammation is what we talk about, and people are in remission, then their risk is not increased. But uncontrolled inflammation is the culprit.
That's why it's important to go and see your rheumatologist.
Definitely.
So with the benefits of having being active and doing so, what have you been looking into with your research in regards to this? So one of the research project that I did, or that my team was involved in, was in looking at the physical activity level of people with rheumatoid arthritis. And we surveyed 169 patients living with rheumatoid arthritis to look at to what extent are they following the Canadian guidelines on physical activity. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines, but what's recommended for everyone is 150 minutes, so roughly 30 minutes, 5 days a week would get you there, of moderate to vigorous physical activity. And what that means is essentially activity that gets your heart pumping a little bit. So it can be walking briskly, anything you do that just gets your heart rate a little bit up. So it doesn't have to be doing, major playing squash kind of thing. Yeah.
And so what we found was that only 44% of people with rheumatoid arthritis actually met those guidelines. And we actually found that that a lot of people actually were doing no moderate or vigorous physical activity at all. And if we compare this to the general population, if we had looking, and we used data from a population health survey, and if we looked in a population of a comparable age and gender, it would be 56%, which is still not great. The general population is still not very good at meeting those guidelines. But people with RA who really need the physical activity are less likely to meet them. And in osteoarthritis, other studies have shown even worse numbers of only 10% meeting the guidelines if people have knee osteoarthritis, which is understandable because it's a weight-bearing joint and it's difficult to walk or difficult to do your activities when your knee hurts. So people have to be creative and find other ways of doing their physical activity that doesn't make their pain worse. So often we recommend things like water-based exercise or bicycle or like stationary bike so that the weight's not on the knee. You sort of sit on your bike. And so, but people have to need some help in finding activities that are not going to make their pain worse.
That's right. And this is where I wanted to chime in and just preach a little bit on this for a while, because I was one of those people that did not have physical activity in my life. I was not exercising. And, you know, I can think of lots of the reasons why, working full time and all this, I didn't choose to make time for it. And then also there is the pain issue. But I really feel that after a certain point of time, I sort of ended up, at least in my own mind, almost giving myself a pass because of that. And then when I decided to make a change and to start doing physical activity and actually joined a gym here in town, that's been like over 18 months ago now. And it's not always easy, but I will tell you, every single time that I finish with my workout, I can tell my legs are stronger, my muscles and everything is supporting my joint better. It is easier to go upstairs. And my nugget of hope and inspiration that I want to give to people is just like the other things that we were talking about with the Making It Work program and things. There are adjustments. There are things that you can do to make your working out time more palatable, to make, because you don't want to be, no one wants to be out there suffering. But when we truly understand that it's not about, you know, looking a certain way in our clothes, it's more important, it's for our health and our longevity. And, you know, there's simple things that you can do. The way my knee is, and I don't know, I've got the jackpot with the RA and the osteo, and I have found that I use the treadmill, but I have to use it on an incline.
Oh,
so by using, and I got that tip from my from an orthopedic surgeon when I was being interviewed for knee replacement options, and by putting the treadmill on an incline, it takes for me, it takes the pressure off in the alignment, and I'm able to go like crazy. So, whereas bikes don't work for me, but try a bike, try an elliptical, try some of the other things. Don't give up. Give it a try. Your body, mind, and soul and spirit will thank you so much, and it is possible. Don't be stubborn like I was. Like, get out there and move your bodies. It's done. It helps with my pain. It helps with my energy. Like, so there, soapbox, up, down, I'm done. But I really wanted to share that because I've lived that exact experience.
And that's what we hear from patients who are able to do it. And sometimes people fear that if they exercise, it's going to make their arthritis worse. And it doesn't. In fact, there's lots of studies showing that it makes the symptoms of arthritis better. Sometimes during if people are experiencing a important flare of their rheumatoid arthritis, then they may have to cut back during the flare. But overall, being physically active actually improves outcomes. And in fact, in that study on rheumatoid arthritis, what we found was that people who had low levels of physical activity, and then if we followed their disease activity over 2 years, their disease, their pain, their fatigue, and how active their arthritis was got worse. Whereas people who were more physically active either got better or stayed the same. So there, and there's, and in osteoarthritis, there's even more compelling data showing that there's better outcomes in terms of pain, physical function, and not to forget also the issue of weight. So,
absolutely.
You know, one of the few things that people can do to prevent progression of osteoarthritis is to maintain a healthy body weight, and which is a big challenge because if you're not able to exercise, it's very difficult to maintain a healthy weight. So by exercising regularly, it allows people to maintain a healthy body weight or to lose weight, and that definitely improves not only the level of pain, but also has been shown to reduce the progression of the osteoarthritis over time.
That is such good news. Yeah, no, that's really good. And so, there's it becomes a lot of these things that we're talking about. It's lifestyle and it's habits and there are many things that we do not have control over, but there's so many that fall into that side of it's absolutely up to there's things that we can do. And it's amazing how small adjustments over time you can look back and think, wow, what a difference. Yeah. So there's you did some sort of a tracking. So in the study you were tracking people's activity with a was it a Fitbit?
So this is actually a study by a colleague of mine at the Arthritis Research Canada, Dr. Linda Lee and her team. And what she developed is an intervention that includes being able to track a person's physical activity using a Fitbit Flex, along with coaching by a physiotherapist. Because what studies have shown is that if you only track, yes, it can improve, but it's usually a modest improvement in physical activity. And exactly for the things that we've been talking about just now, that it's difficult to change behavior. So what actually has a better effect is if we can incorporate interventions that help to support behavior change. So this intervention was wearing a Fitbit Flex and having an education session by a physiotherapist that explained the principles of physical activity and why it was beneficial and why it was safe to alleviate people's fear that they could be making things worse. And then they had telephone conversations every 2 weeks where people were encouraged to set goals, so set physical activity goals, and then checking in every 2 weeks to revisit this goal. So did it work out? And if it didn't, if you weren't able to fully achieve your goal, well, why not? And, finding solutions and brainstorming and then identify ways of modifying things to be able to either set goals that people are able to achieve or either modify their goals or remove some of the barriers. And this intervention with this, both the coaching along with the Fitbit has been tested now. She's done this in people with osteoarthritis, people with rheumatoid arthritis, people with lupus, and it's working out really well. The study that we were talking about that's been published is the study in osteoarthritis, where they did it with people with 61 people with osteoarthritis, and what they found was that using it for only 2 months, which is not a long time, led to people increasing the amount of time that they spend in this moderate vigorous physical activity that I mentioned before. So these activities that get your heart pumping. People were spending increase from about 60 to 80 minutes per week compared to the controls, which actually decreased from 60 to about 50, and also increased their number of steps per day. It improved their performance of their activities of daily living, and it improved their quality of life. So very exciting results, very encouraging results for people. And this was with a very short period of time, and where, if you did this for a longer period, because we usually say that physical activity or physiotherapy usually, takes quite a while before you see the benefits.
It's a common theme in a lot of these things that we've been talking about is collaborating and getting support for what the person's going through, having, an understanding of different things that can be done. And if we use the term self-management, I'm also going to add in there empowerment. Definitely. Right? Because it is, especially if you've been someone who's kind of been stuck in the status quo of not moving or having real challenges, at the workplace or in your whatever it is, to be able to find and connect with things that are really supportive and can make a bit of a change. You can those connections get made, and you feel a little bit more in control.
I'm glad to hear that. That's the goal.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, that is that.
But you're right. Empowerment is very important. Sometimes people can feel helpless. When you get diagnosed with a disease like arthritis, you feel like so much has been taken away from you. And it's learning to recognize that there are things that you have control over, and taking control of the things that you do have control over. And that only occurs with becoming educated about your disease, understanding it, and learning the skills and the ways that you can change things, and being part of the decisions about your health care. So it's all of this is about empowering and making sure that the person at the center of this disease is as much in control as they can.
And also to offer hope, and to realize that there are that you can make improvements, and to attitude is a key component to anything that we're trying to accomplish in life. And that's sort of my mantra for making sure I have a good way to manage my response to stress, and that I can have good outlets and things. And the more it's like anything else, the more you start going and shifting your lifestyle, it can really be like a really positive snowball effect. I've seen it time and time again, and I'm just I'm excited for that. So if we're following up on this study with the Fitbit, the next step is that we've actually combined this with another intervention that I had developed. We're talking about empowering a person to become actively involved in their care. So we have another study currently going on called OPERA, where we've combined the physical activity counseling and the Fitbit with another online tool where people get to self-monitor their symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, get to follow their levels of pain and their disease activity, and are encouraged to set goals. We call this brief action planning, where people set their health goals and then monitor whether they reach them and modify them. And this allows people to see whether or not their disease is well controlled, whether they're on target with their disease. It also helps people to gain a better awareness of how things are interrelated in their life. So they can see over time their symptoms, they can see their physical activity over time with their pain and their fatigue over time. So what you were talking about earlier, that you feel that when you've gone to the gym, after that you have more energy and you have less pain. So, if you can visualize that and see that, oh, look, I was physically active here, and then, my pain and my fatigue went down. Or they can chart what their medication changes are. And because often, the arthritis, it waxes and wanes, it goes up and down, and sometimes it's hard for people to see patterns. So this allows people to see patterns in their symptoms, in their physical activity, in their treatment. It encourages them to set goals, and helps them, empowers them to take control of their disease. So we've just started a randomized controlled trial of that intervention, and we're currently recruiting for that study. Okay, that's again, you get to be involved in some pretty cool stuff. Actually,
they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Those are my fun studies.
So your fun studies. If you could, if funding for studies was unlimited and you could cherry pick, do you have any special projects that you would really like to work on?
I think, I would like this Making It Work program that I've developed, sort of if I had a magic wand and I could make all the resources be suddenly available, I would like to expand that to other diseases. I'd like to add on other modules to this. So right now we've focused really on arthritis, but we know that people with arthritis often have depression and other issues that they may have. So I'd like to have a module to for depression or to support emotional well-being, stress, and if they have other chronic diseases like diabetes, and I'd like to sort of expand that to other chronic diseases. I'd like to make that available to everybody. I'd like to expand it beyond Canada. This self-monitoring stuff, I think, is really, really cool. And I think is, I think there's so much we can do with technology and leveraging technology to empower people.
Yes.
I think that's another way of the future where I would like to be able to do more. There's also sort of a lot more that we can do with electronic medical records and linking data sources to really allow better sharing of information between the data that's collected by the Ministry of Health and the data that's collected by the physicians and the data that's collected in our Fitbits and in our, wearables. And I think if we could connect all of this, we would have such richer information. And if we could have a way that we can use this in real time, I think we could have some really powerful tools to help patients to better manage their health, but also to help clinicians, either physicians or physiotherapists, other allied health professional, to better support patients, and policymakers to make better health policy decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we have so much. This is like information highway. So we need to figure out how to use it in a way and channel it in a way that improves the way that we can help people live healthy lives with arthritis.
Absolutely. Wow, this has been really, really exciting for me to have you in here today.
Thank you.
I think that we've been able to we didn't even talk about, we just assumed everyone knows about arthritis and chronic conditions. It wasn't a discussion about that, but this was about like the exciting stuff of what's happening and what we can do to make improvements for people living with arthritis and just other things as well. I want to see that Making It Work program, the vision that you have, to see that be expanded into different modules and to be brought, because I think it's so important. And for emotional wellness and all of those types of things, there's a lot of really cool stuff there.
Thank you, Sandra, for having me here today. It was a pleasure to be able to share this experience with all of you.
Absolutely. And we will, if there's any studies coming up or anything like that in the future, I will make sure that I get that information out to our community here in Nanaimo and the region. I mean, this CHLY broadcasts here throughout most of the island, also gets reached over to the Lower Mainland and the Sunshine Coast. And so I hope that there has been some inspiring nuggets that you have heard today. And again, thank you so much for Dr. Deanne Lakai for coming in here in studio to meet with me today. Before we close up, I wanted to draw to your attention an event that is coming up next week here in Nanaimo, all across Canada. Next week, May 13th to 19th, is Naturopathic Medicine Week. And there is a talk taking place here in Nanaimo on Tuesday, May 14th, from 7 to 9 p.m. At the Bevan Park Social Center. And it's being put on by Dr. John Yim and his team over at the Vita Care Natural Health Center. And there's going to be 3 separate presentations, 3 naturopathic doctors talking on subjects such as gut health. I'm not sure if you've heard of SIBO, but if I'm remembering correctly, it is small intestinal overgrowth of bacteria, and that is actually, there's a lot of information coming on how that has a lot of health implications. There'll also be a talk on the role of genetics and determining through genetic testing, how you can find out more than just where your ancestors are from, but maybe some predispositions to some conditions that you, again, may be able to be proactive and do things within our lifestyle to make a positive impact on that. The third topic is going to be a discussion on some of the roadblocks and barriers to losing weight. So it sounds like it is going to be really fantastic. If you want to find out more, well, guess what? This Friday morning at around 9 a.m., I will be coming to you live via Facebook on location at the VitaCare Health Clinic in on Bowen, and we're going to be able to check out the different services provided there as well, and we can chat with all the three doctors presenting and find out all about that. It will be posted both on my Facebook page, Chronic Wellness Tips, and of course the VitaCare page as well. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you can watch us live. Just before we get cut off here, I understand we're going to have an emergency broadcast test. I want to mention the Walk for Arthritis. Sorry, I needed some water there. Walks for Arthritis are taking place all over Canada. The ones nearest to us are Parksville, Victoria, and Vancouver. It is on Saturday, June 1st. Still time to register. Go over to www.walkforarthritis.ca, and this is a great chance to get out into your community and do some walking for a very good cause. And I just wanted to do a quick shout out to one of my fellow health advocates, Eileen Davidson, who is Chronic Eileen, and I know that she is one of the walk ambassadors. So looking forward to that. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening.